Hello, today on my channel you will hear an amazing story about life. I hope you enjoy this story. This one struck me to the core. Honestly, I still can't forget it. Enjoy watching.
Olivia felt like she was about to get lucky, after all the disappointments that had befallen her, after all the deceptions and betrayals. Patrick, who had so often taken advantage of her kindness and known no denial of intimacy, had abandoned her and run off with Aria. Felix, head of retail customer service for a large company, interned her under his desk for 2 months and didn't hire her. But now it seemed Olivia had gotten lucky after so much bad luck. She stood in the hallway of a huge mansion and could not believe the happiness that fell on her head. She would babysit the son of these rich men, and she wouldn't have to feel like a victim anymore, though Olivia let all her men into her heart without coercion. "This is your new home," she said with a warm smile. "Get settled in for now. If all goes well, you will spend a few days a week with us. William is growing up fast, and it's very hard for me to manage him." I'm still in shock," Olivia replied. "Do you have a map, or do I have to throw pebbles like Hansel and Gretel?" The hostess laughed. The house was really gigantic. 3 floors, a real spa center in the basement, a huge number of rooms, a garage for 5 cars. Olivia felt as if she'd pulled a lucky ticket. What had she seen in her life? In her home village, the two of them had lived in a small 3-room house. In Washington, D.C., she'd slept anywhere but cheap and close to her next job. And now, they were walking through a charming mansion whose design could easily win several awards at an international competition. There was a dining room, a movie room, a gymnasium. In the next second, Olivia was slightly disappointed. Ariana had shown her William's bedroom, and it was small compared to the other rooms. V was afraid to go to sleep alone. The landlady explained, "This is where we put the little couch for the nanny. We couldn't fit any more, but as soon as he falls asleep, you can go to your room. If you stay overnight, there's a nice little room waiting for you." She waved her hand as if apologizing. To make the woman feel good, Olivia lay down to show her that the crib fit her. Indeed, it was as if the nanny had been made for this bed. If Ariana had seen where Olivia had slept before, for the last 6 months she'd been renting the kitchen. Yes, she was allowed to put a yoga mat on the floor and sleep at night. For $100 a month. There was nothing cheaper anyway. And that trader Felix never once asked her to come to its house, even when his wife wasn't there, but she had studied his car inside and out. She knew every scratch on the dashboard, under the steering wheel. "Nice crib," Olivia said with a smile. "Where's our little prince?" "He's a boy with a temper," she said. "No one can stand him for long. I've decided to postpone the moment of your meeting. Now we'll have coffee and talk. We'll discuss the details, so to speak. I like to be in control. I'm sorry, but I'd like to know more about my son's nanny." "I'm an open book," the girl said. "Yes, and you look so young, so innocent," sighed the hostess. Olivia smiled slyly. Her appearance always misled men. A real angel with a little demon inside. Together they went to the guest kitchen on the 1st floor. The room was more like a cafe, but self-service. There was a lot of stuff in here. Coffee maker, coffee grinder, toaster, pancake maker, egg cooker, and many other appliances. Ariana pressed her finger carelessly, and the machine started making 2 cups of coffee at once. "Could I have some toast?" Olivia asked innocently. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. "Sure, make yourself comfortable," the hostess made a welcoming gesture. "If you get along with William, you'll eat here at lunchtime, and in the morning." "Oh, it's ringing. Sorry, I'll be right back." "Yes, go ahead." While Ariana was away, the nanny took care of things herself. She opened the first cupboard she could find and found maple syrup, real peanut butter, several kinds of bread. She quickly made toast and enjoyed eating it with the sweets. Then it was coffee tasting time. Guatemala, India, Ethiopia, Brazil. And Ariana was still gone. Finally, the woman returned. "Oh," said the hostess, turning on her cell phone to turn on the hood. "I see you've settled in." "Yes," Olivia answered innocently, putting the uneaten toast on her plate. "It's a little burnt. It's really nice here." "I'm sorry, it's just work," Ariana shrugged. "I get calls all the time. That's why I'm hiring a nanny. By the way, I forgot the cakes." The hostess opened the refrigerator, which the future nanny had initially mistaken for a futuristic-looking cupboard. Olivia wanted to smack her hand into her forehead. Instead of eating delicious desserts, she was choking on bread and pasta and syrup. Ariana seemed to have a taste for sweets. Staring at Olivia from the fridge was a classic tiramisu Italian dessert made of several layers of mascarpone cream and coffee-soaked sponge cakes. What's there to like? The baby must fall in love with her, or she was lost. The girl can't go back to the dull and worthless life she had before. No more married men, traitors. As they walked to the second floor, Ariana talked about herself, that she loves her baby boy very much and doesn't want to share him with anyone. That she finds it hard to give the boy enough time, so she needs a nanny in the house. I'm possessive, the landlady said. William is all I have, and Mark, the two closest people in the world. I tried to do everything myself until the last minute, but work. Also, I hate playing with my son. I find all that fun so boring. You don't like to play? Olivia was surprised. Oh, I adore children. I just want to play with them. She rolled her eyes dreamily. What could be better than playing with children? Her 4 younger siblings were always demanding attention. That was probably why Olivia hadn't learned anything in her 22 years. She never finished culinary school. That's because she hated cooking. You have great references, Ariana said. How did you make such a name for yourself at such a young age? It's not that young, said the nanny. I'm 22 now. Oh, you look 18, said the hostess. That's a plus, but the references are still impressive. It was Olivia's turn to smile enigmatically. Victor did all those letters of recommendation. Not from nothing, of course. She had to thank him profusely. Her legs were shaking. But it was worth it. He not only made the letters, which are indistinguishable from the real ones, but also skillfully played former clients when he received a call from her new mistress. Children are my passion, Olivia shrugged. You can tell. Someday I'll have kids of my own. I couldn't stand it and called everyone, Ariana continued, not listening to the girl. After all, 5 letters of recommendation is a number, and you know all your former clients spoke highly of you. I was impressed. Oh, you're embarrassing me. The girl waved her hand. She almost laughed, imagining Victor speaking in different voices. This is the game room, the landlady announced. Playroom is too weak a word. Rather a game gallery, a game space, a game express. Such a description would be more appropriate. The room took up a lot of space. There was everything for active games and creative activities. Soft carpets, balls, slides, labyrinths, swings, playgrounds. The girl's eyes were running wild. Everything was so bright and colorful. Olivia tried to find a word she wanted to call the place. Delicious. The slides, swings, rides, and toys immediately made her want to try them. There was an entire labyrinth in one part where Olivia could easily get lost. Completing the picture was a huge and sharp slide about 4 meters high. She'd only seen one of these at the play center before. She'd taken her little brother there when she'd brought him to show him around Washington. Here come our boys, Ariana announced as she saw the door open. What happened in the next instant made Olivia's heart beat faster, and not just her heart, and not just beating. Mark was frankly bored. He'd grown bored with his luxurious palace. His wife's whole world revolved around William. And the boy, by the way, was growing up insolent and disobedient. Of course, it was Ariana's fault. She loved her son and always thought she owed him a favor. Every whim was fulfilled for some crazy money. When the kid was 3 years old, the wife suddenly wanted to show him the underwater inhabitants. And since there was no time to fly in her busy schedule, she ordered a dive on a small bathyscaphe right in the oceanarium. This whim cost a fortune. At 4 years old, Ariana had a bright idea in her head again. The kid loved flying in an aeroplane, and his wife paid for the super expensive delivery and installation of this structure in their backyard. Sonny and his friends flew up and down for 2 whole days. The aerotube and electric bills were just cosmic, as if the kids had been to the stratosphere. Hello, my love, Mark said in his most languid voice, took his wife's hand and kissed it, and imperceptibly wrinkled. He could not stand the black hairs that appeared on his wife's forearm. Again forgot to visit the beautician. Here, meet Ariana, Ariana said, melting. This is Olivia, our new nanny. God willing, it'll stick. Olivia stood there as if struck by thunder. Mark wasn't just good-looking, he was really handsome. He held himself and smiled like the Hollywood actor Orlando Bloom or a young Brad Pitt. She treated men like dresses. If she saw a beautiful one, she wanted to try it on. And this wasn't a dress, it was a couture suit. I am the host of this hospitable house, modestly announced the handsome man. I hope for fruitful cooperation. What? A new victim? There was a child's voice. Well, I'll make short work of this one. William was holding a water pump action shotgun. He pulled the bolt and began methodically pouring water on Olivia. He must have splashed 2 liters of water on her. Ariana clutched at her heart. She liked this girl so much, would she really run away right now? But to her surprise, the nanny just laughing. Oh yeah, she said, brushing her wet hair out of her face with her hand. Looks like someone asked for it. She grabbed the 4-year-old tomboy, tossed him deftly onto her shoulder, and ran to the ball pool. She threw the boy into it with all her might. Ariana felt something like fear, and Mark felt surprise mixed with respect. But Olivia wasn't going to stop there. When William came to his senses and began to climb out of the pool, the nanny had already armed herself with the same gun and was methodically watering the boy. It's not fair, he screamed. I can't get out. Mom, do something. Defend yourself, weakling, replied the nanny and continued to abuse the boy. But at that moment she got too close to the pool. William grabbed her leg and Olivia lost her balance, fell into the ball pool right beside her ward. Ariana stood at a loss. Wow, what a game. Olivia, are you okay? She asked, running up to her nanny. I'm fine, the girl replied, smiling. She was all wet from the water, and the boy pulled some glitter out of his pocket and threw it at Nanny. Are you sure you're okay? Said Ariana. I can call the doctor. Dada, don't worry, waved Olivia's hand. You can go now. William and I are going to play. See how stiff the kid is? He's probably embarrassed of you. That's all right, we'll loosen him up. She deftly grabbed William by the shoulders, put her arms around him, and fell with him onto the balloons. She laughed again. The boy laughed too, though he had never been known to show affection for his nannies before. A real professional. Mark praised her. Come on, darling, I'm starving. So am I, replied the hostess. True, they were both talking about hunger of a different nature. As soon as they were out of the door of the playroom, Ariana immediately jumped on her husband and grabbed him by the neck. At last we are alone, she said. Have you remembered what day it is today? I remember, replied her husband evasively. But it's in the middle of the day. I have a couple more hours to get ready. Ariana blushed. What was she doing wrong? Why had Mark grown so cold to her? She's still going to the gym, getting a massage, getting her nails done, and he's turning his nose up at her. Maybe he just got bored with her. Anyway, William was busy, and that's good. Therese, the hostess announced to her cook, make me some coffee and bring it to the dining room. And Mark wants lunch. Bring it to my study where you've served my wife, the landlord said. I want to see something. The woman was silent. She hardly ever opened her mouth, which made her an indispensable employee. While Ariana went to get the tablet, a cup of coffee, a pot of sugar, and a cottage cheese dessert appeared on the table, just the way she likes it. Oh, Mark, what are you doing to me? The woman, as soon as those thoughts entered her mind, tears started running down her cheeks. They could have had such a nice time, and instead she's sitting in the dining room, drinking coffee and flipping through a ribbon. So what had she forgotten? Right, William? She frantically opened the smart home app and started looking for the right room. God, how many rooms are there? So many cameras. Here, finally the game room. At that moment, the tablet froze for some reason and had to be restarted. Faster, faster. The picture came back. What she saw on the tablet screen shook her to the core. William was just an ordinary kid. Spoiled, abandoned, and even a little angry, but still just a boy who needed attention. Olivia figured no one had ever hugged him. During playtime, when she picked him up a couple times, he literally clung to her. They'd gotten along quickly, and in this room, she was willing to spend hours on end. At least for now. Wow, Skittles. Nanny splashed her hands. Let's play ball. Ball? William said excitedly. Come on. Together they set up Skittles and then knocked them down with the ball. Then they built a huge castle out of construction blocks. Then they shot each other with suction cup guns. There were so many toys here that there was enough for a whole kindergarten and more than one. William quickly tired of the active games and wanted a book to read to him. Olivia found a small library in one part of the playroom. At some point, while they sat on the benches and rested, Mark laid his head in her lap and fell asleep. Watching this idyll on her tablet, Olivia almost cried with delight. Had she really managed to find a permanent nanny for this 5-year-old tomboy? Of course, a few nuances bothered her. First, the girl had called herself and offered her services, and Ariana had paid a decent sum to a recruitment agency. Secondly, Olivia looked very attractive, but I don't think my son is thinking about a woman's beauty yet. Stupigra, the lady of the house shouted as she entered the room. William ran up to her. "Mom, no," he said, "I'll still play. I like it with Ariana." "That's enough, son. That's enough," replied Ariana. "Look at the clock. It's time for dinner. And Auntie needs to rest." Looking at the nanny, the hostess felt a little embarrassed. Her white hair was disheveled. There were traces of paint and felt-tip pens on her face and hands. All her clothes were wrinkled. I should have told her to get something to change into. And now? But what an effect. At that moment, Ariana felt a kind of jealousy and guilt in front of her son. "Oh, what a baby," Olivia said. She sent this on purpose to dispel any doubts in her mistress's heart. "I could play with him for hours." "Well," Ariana exhaled, "I'll hire you. We'll discuss all the details after dinner, okay?" "Okay." The new nanny waved her hand. "I'd better get changed." She couldn't go back to Washington dressed like that. Well, she could, but it was her employer's fault. We didn't talk about that much action on the phone. Nor did it involve a giant room full of stuff. "Leave it to me," Ariana heard her husband's voice. Apparently, he had also connected to the tablet and looked at what was going on in the game room. And he was obviously pleased with the result. "Oh," exhaled the hostess. "I thought you were busy." "Oh well. I'll take our new employee to the store," Mark said with a smile. "I think she deserves a new dress. What do you think?" But Ariana didn't answer anything. She left the room with her son and went straight to the bathroom. She had to wash William's hands and then change him because he was sweating, feed him, to talk, to ask him how his day was. With these thoughts, she didn't even hear her husband's words. "She's disgusting," Mark said as the door closed. "I don't know why I'm with her. We hired a cleaning lady once. She stole 3 packages of cheese and 2 bottles of alcohol. Oh, and some of Ariana's stuff." "And what?" Olivia asked, pretending to be interested. She wasn't really going to steal anything out of character. "Called the police," said the man. "I thought I was going to fall to the ground in shame. They even gave that poor cleaning lady some kind of fine. My God, for 3 packets of cheese. Imagine that." "Yeah," said the girl, disconcerted by Mark's revelations. "Oh boy. By the way, it was my idea to hire you on a permanent basis," the owner said with a smile. "Ariana spends a hell of a lot of time on William. Or worse, she's dumping him on me. I've got so much to do. And I tell her we can afford a nanny. And such a pretty one," he added softly. The landlord looked her over from head to toe, and Olivia felt uncomfortable. He took a particularly long and piercing look at her breasts and thighs. She could literally feel his naughty fingers caressing her nipples, and not just her nipples. To distract herself, Olivia tried to imagine the millionaire's life. He must work hard to maintain and increase his wealth. Of course, wasting precious time on a child is unwise. "I better wash up and change my clothes," the girl replied, fixing her hair. That didn't look good. "Oh, of course," Mark said. "Follow me." He showed her to the guest bathroom, and Olivia was surprised again at the number of rooms in the house. When she saw herself in the mirror, the nanny blushed to the top of her head. God, she was so dirty. And she was trying to flirt with that millionaire. Yes, she'd have to clean herself up. For about 10 minutes, she scrubbed off the paint and felt tip marks, then tried to fix her hair. When she left the bathroom, she was surprised that this handsome man was ready to spend time with her again. In the meantime, he changed his clothes, and now his muscular torso was adorned with a shirt. It literally encased his muscles, looking sexy as hell. He followed her shameless gaze and smiled. "Want a ride?" he asked, playing with his muscles and car key fob. "There's a great store here, only 10 minutes away. We'll pick out something for your closet." "Of course I want to." Olivia was excited. She couldn't imagine how she was going to get out of here. She took a cab to the gates of the luxury village, hailed and paid for by Ariana. Then she had to walk a long way down the lane in search of the right house, accompanied by a guard. Burning with a strange sense of shame, Olivia went outside with the owner of the house. He showed her a large and beautiful car. The girl didn't know a thing about cars. "Here, a Porsche Cayenne," the millionaire announced. "We call it the Piston. You could say it's a middle-class car. But I like it. It's so big and comfortable. Get in." "And your wife," said the nanny. "Your wife won't mind us driving around like this?" "No, not at all." Mark smiled. "You're part of our family now, aren't you? Right? I hope it will be for a long time." At this point, Ariana didn't mind in her thoughts. She flew far away. William was excitedly telling her about the new games he had learned while eating fish and chips. Mother did not hear him at all. There was a new object in her thoughts, which, "I'm sorry, baby," Ariana said. "It's ringing. It's work-related, literally 5 minutes." The woman ran out of the dining room and looked around. A call on the secret chat room on Telegram. No one must know. She picked up the phone. A shiver ran through her body. If Mark could hear what his wife was talking about on the phone, he would definitely be upset. Well, or surprised at least. The woman ran out of the dining room and looked around. A call to a secret chat room on Telegram. No one must know. She picked up the phone. A shiver ran through her body. If Mark could hear what his wife was saying on the phone, he'd be upset, or surprised at least. Olivia wanted to sit in the back, but Mark put her in the front seat. He chatted the whole short ride to the mall, talking about his daily routine. Nanny thought the man was lonely as hell to open up to the first woman he met. They'd only known each other for a few hours. "I have to make so many decisions every day," he said. "It's exhausting. Hell, sometimes I think, why do I have such a huge house? Why do I need all this? And I can't find the answer." "Isn't that happiness?" Olivia asked. "I feel like I'm in a fairy tale." "Oh, believe me, I'm like an Atlantean. I have to carry too much weight on my shoulders," Mark said. "It's so hard for me sometimes. I'm afraid that I won't be able to bear it and my legs will give out. I need support, oral support." "Maybe moral?" the girl said, embarrassed. "Maybe," agreed the millionaire. At the mall, it became clear to Olivia why he took a car for the middle class, not to stand out. Without leaving the salon, Mark put on a cap, black glasses, and even a mask, quite nice and neat. The nanny shrugged her shoulders and decided not to ask questions about the conspiracy, but the employer himself told her everything. "You see, we're so fond of getting mudslinging," he said as they walked down the corridor. "All these journalists, Telegram channels, I have to be invisible, you know? Be invisible." "Oh, cool store, let's go in." Olivia was out of breath. Mark pointed her toward Diva's store, one of the most expensive stores she'd ever seen. It had a simple motto: only the best. She'd been in one of those stores once, and the prices on t-shirts and sweaters had made her dizzy. "No, thank you," she replied quickly. "It's too expensive." "Oh, it's nothing," replied the millionaire. "It's nice here, and do you know why? Almost no one comes in. After all, expensive things have their own charm. Now we will quickly choose a dress for you, and on the way back." A consultant in an impeccably white shirt and vest came in and gave Olivia an arrogant look. Her whole look said, "Go away, you don't belong here. There's a second-hand store right next door, over there." This X-ray immediately made the girl feel uncomfortable. Then the consultant in the snow-white shirt looked at Mark, looked at him for a long time, and smiled broadly. "Good evening," she said. "Are you choosing something, mister?" "No names?" Mark quickly stopped her. "I'm glad you recognized me, but pretend we're strangers. I need a dress for this lovely girl. What do you recommend?" The girl pretended to have a complex thought process going on in her head. The consultant slowly, as if reluctantly, walked around the room and collected 3 dresses. She walked with them to a door and disappeared inside. Olivia froze, surprised by these movements. "Why are you standing there?" the millionaire asked. "Come on, there's no time to waste. Time is money, you know." It turned out that the door led directly to the fitting room. The counselor left the dresses inside and came out. She gave Olivia another look of superiority, but the girl held her ground. The nanny looked at the lady and said, "Wait in the hall, I'll call for you." Olivia tried to give her voice as much independence and strength as possible, but her ligaments failed her and her words sounded like a request rather than an order. "That's all right," Nanny thought. "I'll get used to it yet." Just as she stepped inside and unbuttoned her blouse, the door opened again. "I told you I'd call," said the girl irritably. But no, it wasn't the counselor who disturbed the nanny's peace. It was Mark who unceremoniously entered the fitting room. The room, however, resembled a small restroom with a huge mirror and a sofa. The millionaire sat down on it, putting his foot behind his leg. The girl felt embarrassed. "Mr. Mark," Olivia said, embarrassed. "I'll put it on now, and I'll be sure to go out." "Let's not waste time," he said. And listen, just call me Mark. Speak on the first name. Come on, put the dress on. I'm William's father. You're almost like a daughter to me too." At that moment, something came over Olivia. She smiled at her employer and stripped down to her underwear, bending over charmingly. She was particularly pleased to see Mark's face flush, but he quickly pulled himself together. She began trying on dresses and admiring herself in the mirror. How beautiful she was, and slim, at least some plus from the constant lack of money. The main thing now is not to get fat on all these goodies of the hospitable house. "That's it," enthusiastically said the millionaire, clapping his hands. "Stay in it right now. You'll ride in it. Give me the tag. What if I have to return it?" the girl asked. "Nonsense." Mark waved his hand. "If you don't like it, we'll buy you a new one. A beautiful girl should have as many dresses as there are stars in the sky." Olivia felt awkward again. On the one hand, the dress was really beautiful. It was a neat beige color, very comfortable, fit like a slip. On the other hand, it showed her belly, and in the back, it was very tight around her hips. She twisted to look at the price tag, but the man was clutching the tag. He paid the consultant, receiving a portion of flattery for the excellent choice. It was obviously about the dress, not the girl. As she walked with Mark to the car, Olivia could feel the rapturous stares. How the men looked at her. And the women too, with ill-concealed envy. And if they saw how handsome Mark was, they might die of jealousy for this gentleman. "Yes, life is getting better," definitely thought the girl and smiled. "Listen," said the millionaire as they drove back. "I don't know what got into me at the store." "What got into you?" Olivia asked innocently. "Well, I broke right into your dressing room," Mark said. "I made you undress in front of me. I don't usually do that." "It's okay," Nanny said, stroking his arm. "You said yourself that I'm part of the family now. Like a daughter." "Well, not exactly a daughter." The man stretched out. "Don't tell my wife, okay? Because she's jealous. She'll cause a scandal." "No way." Olivia waved her hand. "I'm a grave. I won't say anything. Don't even worry." "One time, do you know what she did? Hired some hottie to seduce me," said the millionaire. "She demanded a little more money and wouldn't tell me what she'd done. She said it would make sure your wife knew you weren't cheating on her. Can you believe that?" Mark kept talking nonstop. He talked so much that Olivia couldn't take his words in anymore, but they just flowed into one stream like a melody. She felt good. She was driving in an expensive car with a handsome man in a new dress. And then Mark suddenly took a wrong turn where they'd come from. Not the road, the woods all around. And what the new employer had said seemed logical, but still a little shocked the nanny. Ariana felt ashamed again. She hadn't had enough for long. Literally 20 minutes later, she felt herself boiling over. All her son did was throw a spoon on the floor, but one such gesture was enough to make her lose her temper. Fortunately, it was possible to put both William and the cook in the movie room to watch cartoons. He would behave normally while she quickly worked through her traumas with the psychologist. Yeah, she'd forgotten all about him. The doctor had to wait about 20 minutes. "Good evening," John smiled. "Are you feeling better?" "To be honest, no," replied the hostess. "I have anxiety. You know, I'm afraid I'm going to lose all this, and my little boy. That's what I'm most worried about." She circled the world around her, and the psychologist thought that such fears were quite understandable. How much does this splendor cost? What do they even make money on? Most likely in debt like silk. But the point of John's work was to make the client feel confident. The important thing was that these bigwigs paid their bills. "I'm here to alleviate your anxiety," said the psychologist. "We'll work through these fears and you'll feel better immediately." "Oh, John," the woman sighed. "When I talk to you, I do feel better. But then when you leave..." Joan smiled again. That was the point of his profession. He's not a builder who goes into a house to lay tiles or nail baseboards to the wall once and for all. No, he's like a barber, and the more often the client seeks his services, the better, especially if each fee is an amount that most competitors can only dream of. "We'll work it out," the man said. "You'll be empowered. You'll be able to control yourself alone. You just need a little time. You're the strongest woman I've ever met. You carry such a heavy burden on your charming shoulders, this house with all its wealth. I'm very worried," Ariana told her therapist. "Mark and I have a sex schedule." "Yes, I remember," nodded John with a smile. "Once a week, on Saturdays." "Uh-huh," said Ariana. "If one of us can't or doesn't want to, That time is rescheduled for Tuesday. So, well, go ahead, said the psychologist. I'm all ears. This is so hard for me to admit, Ariana said. The phone. Again, her phone rang during the session. John could hardly restrain himself from exploding. These rich people are too much. According to the rules of therapy, the phone must be turned off during the session, no other way. Excuse me, Ariana said, covering the speaker with her hand. This is a very important conversation. Have some coffee. I'll be right back. The woman's peremptory tone was annoying. John smiled, nodded, and headed for the door. I'll be waiting for you in the guest kitchen, he said. Why not a refreshment at the expense of an uncultured customer? He billed her for the wait time as well, and she'd pay for it. Besides, Ariana's kitchen always had desserts that even John, with his fabulous fees, couldn't afford. And coffee? This family must have their own private plantations in several parts of the world. The flavor is amazing. Not in Italy, Austria, or Germany had he had such amazing coffee. Excuse me, Ariana said, appearing about 15 minutes later. It's all right, John smiled. If life sends you lemons, make lemonade. It's fine. Never apologize to me. And thought to himself, if fate sends you a rude customer, drink all this coffee and eat all the eclairs. It's like going to an expensive cafe and getting paid for it. So, said the hostess, Mark has been skipping our Saturday nights for a month now, and on Tuesdays, as if on purpose, he goes somewhere else. He owes me a week of sex. The psychologist coughed. Of course, he was used to his client's frankness, but sometimes she stumped him. Ariana, you've been married for so many years, John said. It's perfectly normal to take a little break from intimacy. No, you don't understand, the woman continued. Mark is a very committed man. He never fails. And here, he's always coming up with excuses not to fulfill his marital duty. Well, the psychologist shrugged. You need couples therapy. I suggested it, Ariana replied eagerly. But he refuses. He won't work with you. Let's not argue about it, John suggested. We need an intervention. We need to choose the money. Oh, a day to prepare properly. I'll arrange everything before he even realizes what's happened. One, and we're a threesome. Of course, it'll cost a little more. Ariana thought Mark's coldness was the result of her cheating. But how to tell the psychologist? She loves Apollo and her husband. Oh, and her son and her new nanny. She's got a big heart, and she could easily fit everyone in it. Even another lover could fit in there. No, a psychologist doesn't need to know about these nuances of her character. All right, she exhaled. Send me an email with a detailed intervention plan. Before we started, I want to know all the nuances. It was time for John to bow out. Gathering himself, he smiled into his mustache, pleased that he'd figured out this demanding woman so easily. She just has a fixation on order. He really, really needs her. Where else would he get so many rich clients? Maybe he'll even eventually afford a similar house, just a smaller copy. I'm with you, you hear? John said goodbye. Don't be afraid of anything and don't worry about anything. Together we will overcome all difficulties. By the way, let me thank you for slipping me the Fedorovs. Are they working with you now too? Ariane asked. Yes, the psychologist nodded. It was very timely. Another month and I don't know, we would have killed each other. Very interesting, said the woman. I can't say much more than that, John shrugged. Not even to a client like you. When the psychologist left, Ariana called Apollo again. She realized how much of a risk she was taking, but she couldn't wait to hear his voice. It must be necessary to end this relationship before the family falls apart. By the way, where did her beloved husband disappear to? Hello, Ariana whispered. No, honey, he doesn't suspect anything. Under other circumstances, Olivia would have been delighted at the romance that had descended upon her. They were standing in a picturesque clearing. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. The shadows were beautiful on the foliage. Except she was in the car with the husband of her new employer. And it seems this handsome man has plans for the new nanny. The most unseemly. For a while, they were just silent. Mark pressed a button and turned off the engine. Now I'd like to try you on, he told her in a tone that brooked no objection. But Mark, Olivia exhaled. It's the first day we've known each other. You're all handsome and expensive, but besides, what would happen if your wife? Forget the wife, the millionaire shouted. I'm the one hiring you, okay? Don't think anything bad. It's just that I saw you when I fell in love. Oh my God, this is fantastic. I've never had anything like this before. You're so beautiful, like a star. You should be on the runway with your figure. I haven't seen anyone prettier than you in a long time. Okay, the girl replied, looking at herself. Even though I don't think it's right. She glanced at Mark and was taken aback. In the second she wasn't looking at him, he had managed to unbutton his shirt and pants. He had a body so gorgeous that Olivia had goosebumps running down her spine. Like that super expensive dress from the big box boutique she couldn't afford, but if only to try it on. Her fingers seemed to run over Mark's torso, stroked his chest, explored the muscles of his abdomen. Then her palm slid down to his manhood and waited. Yeah, it was all right there too, just like in those adult movies. Get in the back, the millionaire ordered, pointing to the seats, and take off your dress or it'll get wrinkled. His tone made her a little uncomfortable. Who did he think he was? But the desire to feel like a millionaire's wife was too strong. What does she get out of living like that? A luxurious house, lots of money, a handsome man? This Ariana was too lucky. It's like she hit the jackpot in the lottery. It's time to share. The millionaire threw off his clothes and shoes and climbed into the backseat too. Mark, you're so cool, Olivia whispered, hugging the man. I'm aware of that, he replied, tugging her panties off and turning her back to him sharply. Then he laid down on the couch without even kissing her. He pounced on her like a wild animal, and the girl was amazed at his sexual appetite. He did it so sharply and aggressively, as if he wanted to hurt, but it turned out, on the contrary, to be very pleasurable. Olivia couldn't even think that in the depths of her soul lived a victim, giving herself to a man she barely knew, and to such a rude man at that. I am the master here. I'm the master, he said furiously, his pelvis reciprocating and pressing her face against the upholstery of the seat. Olivia's breathing became labored. Yes, you, she answered and turned her head to the side. Silence, he said, grabbed her hair and pulled her back into position, pressing her face back against the leather upholstery. He pressed into her harder and harder, as if he wanted to strangle her, and he took her harder and harder. Olivia found it hard to breathe again, and that was when she climaxed. They seemed to do it at the same time, because Mark exhaled and let her go. Oh God, he said, what has gotten into me? Nothing, it's okay, Olivia replied, stroking his arm. I wanted you too. I know, Mark said. Everyone wants me, I'm used to it. I'm talking about me, what I just experienced. It was stunning. It was like being on the moon. Shall we go before your wife misses you? The nanny asked, putting on her dress. I don't give a damn about my wife, replied the millionaire, but he started to dress too. Listen, it would be nice to have a snack. I'm starving. Can we stop somewhere? No, Olivia said. Let's hurry back to your house. She was scared now. She'd given in to temptation, and now she might lose everything. What if the landlady found out she'd slept with another man's husband on her first day on the job? How would she look her in the eye? She gave in to some strange temptation. She looked to her left and realized she had no regrets. The millionaire, charming as Orlando Bloom, was leisurely buttoning his shirt. You just don't tell her anything, he admonished the girl. Because she's so tender, vulnerable. You know, sometimes I want to do it right in front of her. Show her who's boss. You're the boss, Olivia said, to make the handsome man feel good. Of course, nodded Mark, pulling out onto the country road. But she always makes strange decisions and unilaterally. When we had our wedding anniversary, the round date ordered a grand 30 trailers. Can you believe it? Called all of our friends and acquaintances who were at the wedding. And she reenacted the entire ceremony. Every minute of it, you know. The first day, the second day. Olivia wasn't listening to her new lover. As they drove back to the luxurious mansion, she thought about how nice it would be to take Ariana's place. After all, it was obvious Mark didn't like her. He tolerated her out of respect for motherhood. And she, Olivia, could easily replace that upstart. She wouldn't do anything her new man wouldn't like, and she'll spend days with William. Mark, of course, has no time. He needs to pound capital, like a miner, mining dollars, euros, and pounds sterling. And this ungrateful lady. By the way, how will she look her in the eye after all that happened at the edge of the forest? Apollo allowed himself too much. Today, he called twice in one day. He liked the feeling of danger, the risk. What if Mark found out? She'd be ashamed if the truth came out. However, the mistress was comforting herself with the thought that it wasn't serious, a simple affair that would end sooner or later. She's just getting her fill of pleasure. Is that cheating? Apollo, I'd like to spend a little more time with you, but whispered Ariana into the phone. I've already thought of everything, the manly voice replied. He heard everything before the word but. Wait, my dear. Things will change soon. When I arrive today, don't be surprised. You will. Ariana was surprised. See you later. A few minutes passed and the woman heard the sound of wheels on gravel. They deliberately refused to have sidewalk tiles and asphalt in front of the house. Gravel was harder to maintain, but it looked better. Ariana came out to hug her husband, but there was a police car in front of the house. Good evening. A man in uniform greeted her. I'm sorry to come unannounced, but the situation is urgent. Oh my God, said Ariana. Is something wrong? Something with my husband? Suddenly, Apollo stepped out of the passenger seat. Apollo. He was dressed in his usual suit, which emphasized the relief of his well-trained body. If Mark looked like Orlando Bloom, Apollo looked like a classic athlete from James Bond movies, or Dwayne Johnson. But Paul was also very smart and calculating, not unlike professional athletes. It's an emergency call, the cop said, as if apologizing, and we can't ignore it. Let's go inside. Okay, Ariana agreed. She hated the police, but you can't say no to a man in uniform, can you? The rules of courtesy and hospitality required her to offer tea and cookies. But Ariana couldn't help herself. The policeman was stopped in the hallway. You see, the man began. Your private investigator has shown us the threatening letters that arrive in the corporate mail. And not just any letters. Oh, that. Ariana exhaled and waved her hand. It's nothing, it's nothing. Well, no, said Apollo in his sonorous voice. There have been 3 attempts to enter the restricted area in the last week. I came to the station for advice. Yes, the policeman interjected. Your detective acted professionally. I was the one who said I needed to talk to you urgently. He explained to me that you were taking these threats a little lightly. We went over all the information he provided. We've concluded that the threat is real. If you'd like, you can read the file. With these words, the uniformed man pulled out a thick folder with a pile of papers. Just looking at them made Ariana dizzy. I believe, said the lady of the house. We've been threatened before. It's not unusual. The door opened. A young nanny in a new dress appeared on the threshold, followed by Mark. The girl looked at the delegation in the hallway and went red. Ariana felt embarrassed. Too much upheaval for this young lady in one day. She must have been frightened. Mark, on the other hand, wasn't the least bit embarrassed, as he always was. He waved his hand, but did not approach his wife. Yes, darling, we were a little late, he excused himself. There were terrible traffic jams, but really, we shouldn't have called the cops. We should have sent a driver, Ariana interrupted him. I almost lost my mind. You've been gone over an hour. I can't send a driver to babysit our only son, Mark said in a high-pitched voice and looked at the policeman. Well, that settles it. We're sorry to have put you through a lot of unnecessary circling. We are ready to help as much as we can. Nobody called me. The policeman interrupted him. I've been telling your wife about the threat for the last hour. I can tell you again, sir. Mark's face became puzzled. Then he noticed the private detective his wife had hired a long time ago. He'd mistaken him for a policeman at first. The arrogant athlete in the jacket was smiling in a condescending way. Mark hated the big guy, but he had to keep his mouth shut. After all, a private detective might find out something about his life. Excuse me, what's going on? Mark asked. It's a bad case, Apollo said. Because of your new development. People are getting nervous. Maybe you shouldn't have been so active in the media. Oh God, don't tell me how to deal with the press, Mark interrupted him. We don't care what the plebs think, do we, darling? He looked at his wife for support. Olivia wondered what was going on. What did the police have to do with this? She looked at her mistress and her husband and said, I'm going to go. I think I should be on my way. No, wait, Ariana asked her. So, do we have to go into defense mode? I'm afraid so, exhaled the policeman. We'd love to assign you a team, but the threats are so general, so unspecific. I'm ready to be here day and night, Apollo blurted out. I'm not leaving until I've identified all the threats. Excellent, said Ariana. I wouldn't want to keep people in uniform here. I'm sorry. Well, Let's go into defense mode for a week or two, until you can track down the stalker, right? Absolutely, the cop assured me. I just want you to know that everything is secure. Let's not waste any time, let's keep working. He turned and walked away. Apparently, the lawman felt uncomfortable in this expensive house. Olivia stared at her new mistress, her lover, and the big man in the fancy suit with wide open eyes. What was going on here? What kind of threats? What defense mode? Come with me, darling, Ariana said. I'll make you some green tea, it's soothing, and the men can socialize. Olivia excused herself for a minute to wash her hands and rushed into the guest bath. I wonder if she smells like Mark. Would his wife smell it? She couldn't risk it. She soaked her hands to the elbows then, her face and neck. She carefully examined herself in the mirror, and there seemed to be no traces of their intimacy. Lastly, she perfumed herself with some toilet water that was there. Oh, Ariana said with delight, that's a very respectable attitude to hygiene. But remember, the sanitizer is for things, not skin. The gel is for skin. Merci, Olivia replied, blushing. We were at the store. Listen, there are a lot of things you don't understand. The hostess started. The thing is that my company and Mark, well, we launched a new project, and not everyone liked it. We don't have security, but I hired a detective. He says we're being threatened. I believe him. What a nightmare, said Olivia. Don't worry, my family has always had envious people. Ariana waved her hand. We'll still do our job. It's just that, since this is the situation and you found common ground with my son, couldn't you stay here for the time being? 2 weeks to start with. You'll have to work weekends. We don't want you to go back and forth and have someone following you. Stay with you? The nanny said in a dry voice. No weekends? Ariana mistook her shock for doubt and began to persuade her. I realize it's difficult, but don't be afraid, said the landlady. I'll add your pay. The working day is 10 hours. The rest of the time you can watch movies, go to our Roman sauna, lounging on a chaise lounge. What do you say? Olivia tried to calculate in her mind how much these bigwigs would pay her. It was a lot. And Mark's a great lover too. Free coffee, desserts, daily sex with a millionaire. It was like she was in heaven. I'm in, Olivia said. I just need someone to send for my things. No problem, said Ariana. Well, get settled in. We'll leave only you, Apollo, and our cook outside the perimeter. Apollo? The nanny was surprised. Yes, that's the name of the private detective, the landlady explained and wanted to continue, but then her phone beeped. It's ringing. I'll be right there. Olivia made the most serious face she could and nodded, and so began her double life. By day, she tutored William, spending hours on end with him. In the evening, she bathed and put him to bed. And at night, she went out with Mark. He'd set up dates for her in different rooms of the mansion. At night, the entire outer perimeter was closed, and only the millionaire family and the servants remained inside the house. No one else. Mark took her uncompromisingly and shamelessly. He'd done things to her that Olivia had only seen in adult movies before. But she loved it. To keep from going crazy because she couldn't share her secrets with anyone, the nanny imagined she was discussing her life with her best friend Georgia. She was far away, and she wouldn't discuss such intimate matters with her over the phone. You know, there's a special aura about these millionaires, she told her friend in her imagination. As soon as I see Mark, I agree to whatever he offers. So he asked you? Georgia wondered. Olivia fervently assured her imaginary interlocutor that nothing happened without her consent. But it wasn't true. Mark was just taking what he thought was his. It seemed that life locked up didn't weigh on him at all, especially as he traveled outside the perimeter, against the urging of a huge private investigator. Then one day the millionaire showed up at her room during the day. Olivia quickly realized why the boy was growing up such a... No, take a break, Ariana repeated insistently. I think William needs to spend some time with his mom. The nanny shrugged and headed for her room. Of course, she had been assigned a very small bedroom, but it was her own. She was delighted to have her own sofa and complete solitude, and you don't have to pay a dime for this beauty. More to the point, they were paying her extra. About 10 minutes after Olivia entered the room and settled down on the sofa, the door opened without knocking. The nanny thought Ariana had had enough. But no, the master of the house came in. I have a present for you, Mark said in a gentle voice, and handed her a box tied with a red bow. Wow, thought Olivia. It must be a new iPhone. She'd heard that millionaires usually gave their mistresses things like this: an expensive phone, wireless headphones, a fitness watch, something worth the money. The box did give away that there was a gadget inside. But what kind? Olivia shook it. "Open it," Mark said. "I want to see if you like my surprise." But the girl was not destined to see the contents. Suddenly the door to the room opened. At the last second, Olivia managed to hide the box behind a pillow. She crossed her arms so she couldn't see how much they were shaking. Spots appeared on her face. "There you are," said Ariana. "William is already tired of his mommy and is demanding his favorite nanny." "I'm on my way," Olivia replied with a smile, though she wasn't amused. "What are you doing here?" Ariana asked in surprise, looking at Mark. "I'm checking how our new employee is handling the baby," Mark said without a smile. "I'll give her a little test at the first opportunity. We need to make sure William is in good hands." "God, you're so thoughtful." Ariana smiled and kissed her husband on the cheek, then on the lips, then on his neck. Again and again, Olivia blushed. "You're free to go," Mark said, as if mocking. While Ariana kissed her husband passionately, the nanny slipped out of the room. The box remained behind the pillow. Tonight, she would see what her new lover had given her. The gift Mark saw was a corner sticking out. He tried to correct it, but it turned out worse and caught his wife's attention. She quickly intercepted his hand. "Oh, is this for me?" Ariana asked enthusiastically, accepting the box. "You're such a romantic." He hadn't given her a gift in a long time. On the one hand, it was understandable. All their wishes had been fulfilled a long time ago. What do you give a man who has everything? On the other hand, a little surprise is always so nice. She kissed her husband tenderly and then passionately. But when the woman opened the box, she was somewhat puzzled by its contents. Apollo quickly took his place in the luxurious house and began to be seen as part of the interior. He behaved on an equal footing with the owners, and it pissed Mark off. But he dared not argue with the big man. That was his character. In front of really strong and powerful people, he would pass over and try to make jokes. The detective, on the contrary, was extremely serious, and every day he made the situation worse. In the morning, he held some sort of meeting, drinking coffee with the owners of the house. "Yesterday I recorded an attempted break-in," the detective said, showing them a clipboard. "Here you go." There was indeed some guy on the screen that was caught on camera. He was approaching their fence, hovering around it. On the next tape, the same intruder shows up at the driveway gate. There's no face, no specific features. Black cap, shapeless jacket, black sneakers, spun around and walked away. "But he doesn't do anything," Mark said. "He just walks around the fence, even if he tried to climb over." "No, that guy didn't do anything." "Of course he did," thought Apollo. "I paid him to just come to the property, not to mess around." "Not yet," the detective said aloud. "I think there's a whole campaign against your family. We need to be on the lookout for any threats." Olivia, who was on her way to the master kitchen, froze in front of the door. If the baby was still asleep, she was allowed to drink coffee in Ariana's company. Hearing the detective's voice, she was discouraged. Who wants to break in here? Why? And why are these people talking so calmly about such scary topics? "My recommendation is not to sleep in the same room," the detective said. "That way there's less chance of, well, you know." "We sleep in separate rooms," Mark said, embarrassed. "Really? That doesn't concern you?" Apollo kept a stony expression on his manly face, but at this moment it was hard for him to restrain himself. He knew perfectly well that Mark did not come to his wife at night, or rather, he should come once a week, but he shirked that duty. His conjugal duties were performed by Apollo himself, and quite successfully. At least Ariana was delighted. "What I meant was that the rooms had to be changed," Apollo explained. "One day in one, another day in another. So that, well, you know." "I'll think about your suggestion," Mark said and looked at his smartwatch. "Right, I've got things to do." "If I were you, I wouldn't go around the city like this, unprotected," said the detective. "You're not in my place," the owner cut him off. He quickly left the kitchen, and to the right of the entrance he saw his mistress, but he remained silent and only winked furtively at Olivia. "Not in your shoes yet," thought Apollo, smiling furtively at Ariana. She looked embarrassed and hid her gaze. The video phone rang. "The psychologist," Ariana said, slamming the desk. "I forgot again." She ran out of the kitchen and saw the nanny. froze in front of her, raising her hand. Now, what to load the girl up with so she doesn't hang around doing nothing? Olivia, she said, go get William up already. You'll have breakfast with him. And then go on, brush his teeth, and then I'll join you for lunch, okay? The bell rang again. The landlady took out her tablet and pressed the button. Thank God for smart home, the front door opened remotely, applied to their mansion, a true smart palace. Ariana felt guilty once again. This time it was because she couldn't remember the times and dates when the psychologist was coming, and she had determined the days of the sessions herself. Good afternoon, she said as she ran into the front hall. John had already made his way to the stairs and was looking at the hostess with his traditional smile. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. It's nothing, the psychologist waved his hand. I understand perfectly well how busy you are. Well, shall we start our session in the kitchen? I'm so thirsty for coffee. I think you asked me to allocate this time just for you, to bribe you every time with your charming smile and desserts. Ariana was relieved the anxiety was gone. How wonderful that one can redeem oneself so easily. Buy the psychologist an exclusive coffee, gag her with a designer brownie, toss an extra banknote. Well, not toss it. Put it on a card. But in that moment, the guilt reappeared already in front of her son. After all, she hadn't even found time to go into his room and kiss him on the forehead to wake him up. There was Olivia for that now, though. We should give her some kind of gift to cheer her up. You know, Mark's been acting strange. Ariana began from afar as they sat down at the table. It's not that he's gone cold. Has he changed? The psychologist asked in an ingratiating voice, looking carefully into the eyes of her benefactress. She was the key provider of wealthy clients for his practice, so he needed to show maximum interest. Not that, Ariana shrugged. I wouldn't even say estranged. We've got a complicated situation here. As you can see, there's even security now. Oh, that's all the outer shell, John said. Let's focus on your family. What happened? What seemed strange to you? You see, doctor, he gave me a gift, said the woman and blushed thickly. Oh, I beg your pardon. It's the phone again. All these questions, all these cases, they get to her one day. Ariana whispered with her lips, quite silently, I'm sorry, and started discussing business matters. The psychologist didn't concentrate on the conversation. He was just hearing clever words from the world of high technology, which he didn't understand anything about. It's hard for me to talk now. Ariana was losing patience. In the evening we'll have a meetup, as always. Oh, okay, well. Tell me about conversion. Surprise me. John leaned back in his chair. After coffee he wanted to smoke, but tobacco was strictly forbidden in this house. Not even flavored vapor. And he loved smoking. He sees the process of letting the smoke pass through him as a kind of meditation. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. He's so engrossed in smoking non-existent tobacco that he misses Ariana finishing her conversation and returning to their session. That's the kind of gift he gave me, doctor, the woman announced. So what did he give her? Thought John. A task with an asterisk. But why? The girl was surprised. Why? To get money out of us. Mark shrugged. You should see the bills he's putting up. All right, enough talk. Get undressed. I've just watched a movie. Now we'll try everything. I can't wait till tonight. No, that's not gonna work, Olivia said. No more risks. You realize if anyone sees us, it's a fiasco. Even if they do, Apollo thought, lurking outside the door. Even if they do. He took a few careful steps without making a sound. He turned around and went to the closet he'd adapted as his office. It seemed he had a real opportunity to take down his rival, and to do it nicely. Of course, Olivia wasn't going to put her new lover on a sexual diet, especially since she had an appetite too. She just decided to increase her value a little by stopping running to him at the first whistle. Let him have his way. Let him decide who is dearer to him than his wife or the new nanny who treats his son so masterfully. On the third day the girl gave up. She wrote to Mark that she was ready to meet him at night. He immediately chose the location Roman Hall. It was a huge bathroom in the basement. The girl struggled to find the right staircase in the dark, and then the right door. In addition to the huge bathtub, there was a steam stall. It was decorated as if one really found oneself in ancient Rome. Wow, she said, what a marvel. I've been waiting for you, darling, Mark whispered in his charming voice, pulling the towel off his thighs. I've been longing for your company. and your body. The designer had even provided a small couch where one could rest after the steamy procedures. On it, the millionaire assigned his son's nanny. Once again, no hugs or kisses. "I'm in love," he whispered, laying her face down and pressing her down hard. "I swear to God, I've fallen in love." But the girl couldn't relax. Tonight, everything was different and not the same. Mark's aggressive caresses weren't relaxing her, but tensing her up. Couldn't he be at least a little gentle? And Olivia couldn't relax either, because of the millionaire's constant whispering. "I'm in charge," he whispered, moving his pelvis vigorously. "I'm the boss. Aya." That night, the nanny was never able to turn off her brain to reach the highest point of pleasure, but she put it down to fatigue. William was pulling a lot of energy out of her too, and she had no days off at all. After the quick sex, Mark wanted to sit and talk some more, but Olivia hurried to say goodbye. "Honey, I have to get up early tomorrow," she said. "And anyway, if you want to make you and me feel a little better, I'd like to have sex away from your wife." Let her take the hint however she wants, or she needs to go on vacation with him. By the way, William can come too, or he should kick his wife out. Well, isn't it time to do the honors? Olivia went back to her room and fell asleep until her alarm clock. Mark, on the other hand, couldn't sleep a wink. After having sex with his son's nanny, he felt energized as if he was already rested. He needed to build on his success. After all, how good he was for hiring this beauty. Now there was always an appetizing dish at home. No need to go to special places where they serve them. He had a great idea. At 8 in the morning, Mark sat in the kitchen and sent out the invitations. When his wife walked in, she looked like she was the one who had been up half the night. He smiled at her and hurried to announce. "Good morning," said Mark. "In exactly 1 month's time, I'll be 37. I've decided to get everyone together for the occasion. Everyone. Here, I'm making invites." "But dear," said Ariana, "we need to discuss such matters with our guard." "I'll get him." Mark's eyes widened. So that's it. The big guy's a guard now. Before you know it, he'll be sharing a bathroom with them, and he'll be the third one in bed. By the way, I should do my conjugal duty more often because I've got a big bill coming due. Not that Mark felt guilty about it, but he had to make up for lost time. So his wife wouldn't suspect a thing. "Paul," Ariana said as the detective entered the kitchen, "the husband wants to celebrate another birthday in style." "Uh-huh," nodded the landlord, sipping his coffee. "We've been a bit reclusive lately. We'll order good catering, invite musicians. By the way, you can be there too." "Well, there's plenty of time. I'll work out a program so no one gets bored." "I do not approve of such an event," said Apollo. "Really?" Mark was surprised. "I don't give a damn about your approval, big guy." "Darling, why are you doing this?" Ariana spluttered. "Paul works 24/7 as it is. He doesn't sleep at night. He's guarding us." "Sweetheart, what the hell?" Mark said. "We live in a gated community. Protected. You and I have been threatened our whole lives. I think the number of guests should be reduced," said Apollo, as if he hadn't heard the criticism. "Down to 10. I'll hire a couple of guys. We can provide security." Mark jumped up from his seat and left without even finishing his coffee. The detective was triumphant, but he didn't show it. "There we go." Ariana exhaled. "We need to work this situation out with a psychologist." "My lady," Apollo said, "I have some information to share." "I'm listening attentively," the woman replied and tried to smile. "I would like to warn you right away," the detective continued, "that some aspects may hurt. Are you sure you want to know that?" Ariana smiled at first. She was already prepared to listen to another story about the house being besieged at night by unknown intruders. But what Apollo told her really hurt. It really hurt, and it really hurt. "Listen, how long are you going to be with me?" William asked, stretching in his bed. "What do you mean?" Olivia wondered. "I think so. Maybe even forever." "No," the boy objected. "All babysitters leave quickly." "How many were there?" the girl asked. "I can't count," William shrugged. "What are we playing today?" Olivia was supposed to prepare a menu for her pupil from the evening. A woman named Teresa, who was known as the cook, prepared every dish with diligence. She had the undeniable advantage that she was always silent. At most she would say hello or ask how she was doing. When Nanny and William arrived in the dining room, everything was ready. Olivia removed the steel covers and there were 2 plates underneath. Nothing fancy. Rice porridge, thin strips of bacon, a boiled egg, tomato, and cucumber. Waiting for the boy was a glass of orange juice that Teresa had prepared the day before. The girl smiled. How nice it was not to have to cook. She hated that activity. I don't eat meat, William said with a pout. You had some yesterday. Olivia was surprised, picking up her fork and knife. I did, the boy admitted. I haven't eaten since today. Well, only if you feed me. For some reason, the boy liked to be served by someone, although his age required him to eat on his own. But Olivia didn't see anything wrong with that whim. After a few seconds, he took the dishes and began to eat as if nothing had happened. Now I'm eating meat, William said. It's good. Bad boy, said the nanny, and the little boy smiled. He knew she didn't mean it. Shall we go outside? Uncle Paul says it's dangerous out there, William said. Nonsense, Olivia said. It's nice out there. Look how the sun is shining. I'm not going, the boy said. We'll be in the playroom, okay. With such a huge entertainment room, it was really possible to stay indoors. Right away, William decided to play basketball. He had a hoop, almost like a real hoop, but at a lower height, and a much lighter ball. Then he decided to shoot a toy gun, then to build a castle, then to put together puzzles. So the time to lunch passed. Ariana did not honor them with her presence. Tired? Said the little boy and plumped to Olivia. William, will you miss me if I go away? The nanny asked, squatting down and hugging the boy. No, he admitted honestly, I don't know how to be bored. Ariana never came to see them that day. Olivia walked around the mansion, but couldn't find her mistress anywhere. And Mark was missing too. For a moment it seemed to her that she was alone in this huge house with William and the cook. It was so, but she would not like the reason for her loneliness. Once again waking up alone, in an empty bed, Ariana realized that she could not wait any longer. She couldn't take it anymore. She needed to talk to her husband. This couldn't go on for too long. She wandered around the mansion, but her spouse was nowhere to be found. She had to call the phone. Mark, Ariana said, I'm waiting for you in the living room. Come here at once. Not 5 minutes later, he showed up. Where the hell had he been hiding? Putting his trademark smile on his face, Mark walked over to his wife and put his hand on her shoulder. It was hot, but Ariana shamelessly rejected the caress. In her hand, she was holding a document, an ordinary sheet of the A4 paper folded in 3, and she was crying. Mark, she said, will you explain what this is? He took the document in his hands, unfolded it, and felt the sweat on his forehead. He'd been caught in a camera trap. The picture showed Mark sitting with his torso unbuttoned behind the wheel of the very same Porsche Cayenne. With Olivia's hand on his chest, yeah, he saw the sign. But did they really send them that photo? It was nothing. Mark waved his hand. Just a small fine? I'll pay it. Is that what you think I'm worried about? His wife asked, wiping away a tear. Honey, you're going to find this hard to believe, he began, trying to hug his wife. She slipped away again. But you have to for both our sakes. Nothing happened with her, I swear to you. Okay, how about this video? Ariana asked, showing him the tablet. It's him walking into the Roman room in his robe. What's the big deal? He resented it. So what if I decided to take a bath? I'm a free man. Then look further, said the wife, wiping away a tear. Following the man, looking around, walked in Olivia. You've been following me. Mark blurted out. We're a family, we're one. Is that why you're sleeping with the nanny? Ariana asked. You betrayed me. You betrayed me. It's a good thing Paul opened my eyes. Oh, that's why you hired him? Mark was puzzled. So he could spy on me? For the first time in their years together, they fought, and the man let out everything that had been building up in him for years. He casually mentioned a few names of his mistresses, and she knew it. He'd said so many hurtful words that Ariana felt insulted, humiliated, crushed. Why did you put up with it? She asked, wiping away her tears. Why did you keep silent? For you. Mark exhaled. We're family. I can't see you anymore, Ariana said. It's beyond me. Well, said the man suddenly calm, it's your choice. If that's the way you want it. The next morning was strange. The cook woke Olivia up and asked her to come downstairs. When she asked about William, the woman just waved her hands. The boy is not allowed in, she said. Please go to the front room. They're waiting for you there. The nanny thought Mark had finally had an epiphany, that he appreciated all her concern for the child and was ready to prioritize, like kicking out his useless wife, who's always hanging on the wire and can't even play with his son. But the reality turned out to be much more painful than the girl had time to draw. "Good morning," said the private detective. He was dressed in his impeccable suit and a white shirt that was tight around his muscles. "Good morning," Olivia replied. "What's wrong?" "You're leaving." "I've been authorized to get you out of here," Apollo said, "along with all your belongings." "What?" Nanny was outraged. "How dare you?" "I'm not a servant. I'm a full member of the family." "What do you think you're doing?" "The same as you." The detective smiled and lowered his voice. "Only not with Mr., but with Mrs., but none of that matters anymore. We'll go up to your room now. You'll pack quickly, and we'll go away." So that's how it is, thought the girl. Used and thrown away. Of course, when Mark was caught frying, he preferred to keep the family together. In the room, the nanny hesitated, tears beginning to roll from her eyes. That's how the story ends. She just gets kicked out. No more coffee and cakes, no more huge playroom, and the little millionaire. And no more perfect lover either. But Apollo was deaf to her misery. He extracted 2 large garbage bags from the inside pocket of his jacket. "Here," he demanded, unfolding one, and began throwing all her things into it indiscriminately. Tears kept rolling down her cheeks. In just 5 minutes, both bags were full. He picked them up easily and carried them in front of him as if they were trash. "Would you call me a cab?" Olivia asked. "I can't carry this stuff myself, and I have nowhere to go." "Don't ask questions and don't talk," Apollo demanded. "Follow me." He opened one of the cars that definitely belonged to her former employer's family. She didn't know the make, but the car looked very expensive. She had seen the family driver behind the wheel of this car before. Apollo put his hand to the trunk of the car, and it swung open. Threw her things in there. "Ariana wants me to personally drive you away," he said. "So get in." Olivia felt scared. This big guy could take her out into the woods and hit her over the head, or abuse her, or do something terrible. She wanted to run away, but where to? "I'm not going," the girl said. "You're scaring me." "Don't be afraid." Apollo smiled and showed her a puffy envelope. He opened it. "You've just been calculated and fired. Nothing personal." When she saw the bills, the fear went away. Just like that, she would leave undefeated. The girl smiled and jumped into the front seat. As they drove, Olivia tried to pique the jock's interest, as if unintentionally showing him her leg, pretending that she was very hot. And then the strap of her dress slipped down by accident. But Apollo paid no attention to her. He was going so fast it was breathtaking. A real racer. In half an hour they were in Washington, D.C., speeding through its streets. "Where are we going?" Olivia asked. "I don't have anywhere. I moved out of my previous room." "Ariana's generous," the detective said. "She rented you a hotel room for 3 days, so you can look for a new place to live." "Oh my God, that's so sweet," the girl said. "I'm going to miss this castle. It was the best 3 weeks of my life." "Well," said Apollo, stopping outside the inn. "Take your things and get out. Show me your passport and that's it." "Wait," Olivia grabbed his shoulder. "Where's my money?" "Oh, yeah." The detective pulled an envelope from his inside pocket and began to count the bills unceremoniously. But Olivia was nimble. She snatched the money and immediately jumped out of the car. Apollo stood up slowly, walked around his vehicle, and hovered over her. "What are you doing?" he said irritably. "I'm going to calculate you myself. Bring it back here." "Look around," said the girl with a sly smile. "We're in Washington, not your mansion. If you misbehave, I'll call the police. I'll tell them you've been harassing me, and it's all on camera." Apollo cursed and raised his hand to hit the stubborn blonde. But then he lowered his hand, thinking that now he wouldn't have any need for money. "Okay, you win." He opened the trunk, tossed 2 bags on the ground, and set off. A month ago, Olivia probably would have fallen through the ground, but the 3 weeks she'd spent at the millionaire's mansion had given her mental strength. Walking behind the counter, she gave her information, received an electronic key, and nonchalantly pointed to the bags at the entrance. "That's my stuff," Olivia said. "Have someone drop it off." The room was not as comfortable as the hotel, but it was nice. When she counted the bills, she realized that she had enough for a couple of months of comfortable living. And then, suddenly the phone rang. The now former nanny was pleased to see 4 cherished letters on the screen. "Darling," whispered Mark without greeting. "Can you and I meet?" "Of course," Olivia replied. "I'm waiting for an apology and moral compensation for the lost work." "Everything will be fine, my dear," the man replied. "I'll tell you things you won't believe." Apollo was over the moon. He had just pulled off the most successful operation of his life. He had cleared the way for wealth, happiness, and a secure old age. His enemies laughed at him in vain. Now he's beginning a new phase of his destiny. First of all, he must be careful not to let any rival appear. If he hires a security guard, it'll be a total imported man, or gay. Secondly, we need to keep Ariana safe and well taken care of. Get that psychologist away from her. Don't waste the family money on that kind of nonsense. Apollo's car pulled up to the village, but the guards were in no hurry to raise the barrier. "Hey, guys," barked the detective. "Let's roll down the window. Don't we recognize our superiors?" "I'm sorry, I was told not to let you in," answered the officer in charge. "Your pass has been revoked." "What the hell are you talking about?" asked Apollo. Getting out of the car, he ran to the barrier and tried to lift the boom. "Yes, it is made securely. Even his strength is not enough." "You understand, it's not our decision," said the guard. "And if you go on a rampage here, well, you know what will happen." "You're confused," the detective said and pulled out his cell phone. He tried to reach Olivia, but the call wouldn't go through. She blocked him on Telegram and other messengers. So he got behind the wheel, pushed the button, but the engine wouldn't start. She blocked the electronic key too. "Don't worry, we'll drive the car away," the guard said. "You better call a cab." "What do you think you're doing?" Apollo shouted. He could not comprehend what was happening. "Do you know who I am?" "All I know is that you are now on the list of people allowed into the restricted area," the man replied politely. "We have the right to call the police to settle a dispute, but we wouldn't want it to come to that." Apollo spat, turned around and walked away. Had the rascal outplayed him? No, Ariana just needed to cool down. In a day or two, she'll be looking for him herself. She can't live without him. Mark entered the room of the budget hotel and looked around. It was poor, but that's how most people lived, at best, or maybe a lot worse. Olivia rushed over to him, smiled radiantly, and kissed him. "Probably wants to go back to the mansion." "I dumped her," Mark said. "You know, I suspected from the beginning that my marriage was a mistake. You know, when I saw you, it was like a switch in my heart. I swear, I've never seen anything like it before or since." "I'm so glad to hear that," Olivia said. "I fell in love with you right away too. I'd also thought it would be cool if I could take that Ariana's place." Mark smiled. At that moment, he really did look like Orlando Bloom, like a sibling. He hugged her and kissed her. And the girl literally flew to the 7th heaven from happiness. Her dream had come true. What a dream, the most daring dream. Now the handsome boy belongs only to her. So first of all, no nannies. At most a nurse, old and ugly, so that the man will not even think of cheating. Secondly, you need to get yourself cleaned up. Get your hair done, go to the gym, go on a diet. You should only want her. Third, constant supervision. She's not gonna trust this dog like Ariana. No, he has to be there for her at all times. "So you kicked her out," Olivia said with a smile. "Oh, it's such a trauma for poor William." "Better," said the handsome man. "I left on my own." The girl couldn't believe her ears. Her jaw dropped and nearly fell on her chest. Was he going to build a new house? Yeah, if he'd left her a castle like that, let him go. What does she know about the man, though? Maybe he's got another house. Maybe even bigger and better. And not in the US, but somewhere on the coast of Spain. "I don't want that golden cage anymore," Mark said in a high-pitched voice. "Let her stay in that luxurious house of hers alone. Well, with our little son. I'll come and visit him once in a while." "What?" Olivia asked. "So it's not your house?" "No," Mark smiled. "It was her father who built it, but you love me, don't you?" "Of course," she replied, and felt her throat go dry. "But artificial intelligence. I gave up my share of the family trust too," the man continued. "You know, her father would have made me do it anyway. He wouldn't even take his car. Screw them, I want to forget this whole thing like a bad dream." "I'm sorry," whispered the former nanny. "I'm dizzy." "We'll get an apartment," Mark continued, as if he hadn't heard her. "I don't have much money, but I found a good one. It's called the studio. 12 square meters, just the essentials. We'll work together like a normal family. I think we'll be able to afford something bigger in time. But Olivia said, gulping for air. But I know you have a lot of stuff, the man sighed. I'll order storage systems. You know, there are those textile ones. You know, like upholstered closets. We can put some of it in the common hallway. Olivia, where are you going? But the former nanny wasn't listening to him anymore. She was moving on to a new life. Without Mark and the studio apartment. Let him stay in this room for 3 days. He needs it more.
Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.